Hey guys, what's going on? This is Ryan Mickler. I'm the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. I've got a very short message for you today. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is our Friday Field Notes where I share some of my thoughts, my ramblings that have been bouncing around in my brain over the past week or so. And I got thinking about this concept of incremental improvement. It seems to me that so many of us spend a crazy amount of time thinking about our biggest and most audacious and noble objectives and goals. And that's fine and great. But if it's hindering us because it's so large that we can't possibly see ourselves doing it, and it causes us to retreat or to shirk our actions moving forward, then it's not really good for us. It's a problem. So I'm going to talk with you about that today. And I'm shooting off the hip and off the cuff a little bit because this is important. And I've thought a lot about this over the past couple of years. And even in my own life, the way that I've improved in my life is not through swinging for the fences. It's, if we're using that analogy, is getting on base every single day and winning these minor, seemingly minor and small little victories. Before we get into that, just want to mention very, very quickly that we've got our store. We've got our merchandise store if you aren't familiar with that. So you can go to store.orderofman.com and you can look at shirts, hats, patches, lightweight jackets, hoodies, decals. And then, of course, we've got this right here, which is our number one selling item. If you're not following on YouTube, do that. But I'm holding up right now our 12-week battle planner. So this is a tool that actually will help you improve in the area that I'm talking about today, incremental improvement. So you can check that out at store.orderofman.com, including a short little video on how to use this planner effectively. Again, store.orderofman.com. All right, enough of that. When I think about planning, I think that most of the goal setting and planning strategies out there miss the mark. I think they're close to the target. I think there's actually a lot of practical wisdom and benefit to looking into this, some of these planners and these goal setting systems. But what they're really missing is the reverse engineering process back into daily actions, things that you can do on a daily basis to improve your odds of ultimate performance. So you might say, well, I want to run a marathon, and then that's it. Like, there's nothing else that follows. And I would suggest to you that the reason people don't achieve their objectives is not because they don't have them. Everybody I've talked to has goals and desires and dreams and objectives to varying degrees. Everybody has that. What not everybody has is the ability to take action every single day to march down that path of improvement and ultimately achieving their objectives. So when you use our battle planning system, whether you do or not, really the key is only to come up with an objective and a goal as a benchmark to work backwards into what needs to be done on a daily basis. So let's take running a marathon, for example. If you want to run a marathon in the next 90 days, then good, check, got it. Now, what do you need to do leading up to that? Well, you need to run. Right? I'm not here to tell you what your schedule should be because I'm the least qualified to talk about running a marathon or running in general because I despise it. But you might say to yourself, well, I'm going to run 3 to 5 miles every single morning. And on the weekends, the first weekend, I'm going to run 7 miles. And the next weekend, 10 miles. And the third weekend, I'm going to go back to 2 miles. But the fourth weekend, I'm going to do a 10 miler. And then I'm going to go back. And then the fifth weekend, I'm going to do a half marathon. And then I'm going to take a break on the next weekend. Right. So you come up with this strategy. Now, the hard part is that as you're running 3 miles or 4 or 5 miles every single day, it doesn't really seem like you're doing anything all that wonderful. Some of you might say, well, 5 miles in a day, that's pretty good. I would say that, but you get the point. The point is that it's less than what you're totally capable of. And so you feel like, oh, well, I'm just running 3 to 5 miles and I'm not seeing any results. And this isn't really a marathon. And so I'm just going to throw in the towel. This is unnecessary. And then you don't go today and you don't go tomorrow and you don't go the next day. And before you know it, race time comes along and you're not ready and you drop out. I've seen this time and time again, whether it comes to racing or losing weight or starting a business. Starting a business is a great example. You all have ideas and goals and ambitions and business ideas and prospects, and you want to change the world, right? You want to make your dent in the world. Fine and great, noble. You should want to make a dent in the world. You should want to do something that's significant and meaningful. But if it becomes deflating because it's so big, then it doesn't really matter what it is because you're not going to do it. Now with podcasting, I wanted to create a top 10 podcast. Now we're not quite there. We are in certain categories, but I want to become a top 10 podcast in all categories in the world. I want to be a number one podcast. Well, it's taken me 7 years and I'm still not to that point. So am I a loser? Do I throw in the towel? Have I not achieved what I wanted? No, because I don't measure my success on that. What I actually measure my success on is doing 3 podcasts every single week without fail, rain or shine or whatever it may be. And this is what I'm going to put out. And I'm going to listen to feedback and I'm going to improve technology and I'm going to get better at this so that I can ultimately achieve my greatest desire, which is to hit those top charts. Right. But if I was only measuring it on hitting the top charts, I would have thrown in the towel long ago. Now I'll give you an example. It's a Thursday afternoon. It's about 3:00 my time as I'm recording this. This Friday field notes that you're listening to right now, I pre-recorded this. So I'm recording this about a little over a week early. And I'm doing this because I know that I'm going to be gone next week. And the likelihood of me being able to record a Friday field notes next week is very slim. So I'm doing it right now because I made a commitment to put out 3 podcasts per week. And I haven't missed one. And I think we're about 850 or 880 episodes into the podcast at this point. I have not missed a single podcast in 7 years. Not one. I was late on a few, but I still got it out on the day I was supposed to release it. So in those 7 years, I haven't missed a single podcast. And every time I podcast, I get a little better and a little better and a little better. And people will say, oh, well, you're so good at this. Right. Because I've done thousands and thousands of hours worth of podcasting. And if I'm not somewhat good at this by now, that might be a red flag for me. But the power comes in incremental improvement. So don't think that just because you can't have what you ultimately desire, that you shouldn't start. I see this quite often when it comes to people wanting to lose weight or people wanting to pay off debt. So let's say you have $20,000 of debt and all you can afford to do is to put $100 a month extra towards paying off that debt. You might be so overwhelmed. It might seem so insurmountable that you think to yourself, what's this $100 going to do? Well, it's going to do a lot, actually, because it's going to compound over time. You're going to move from 100 to 150 when you get a raise or you have some extra money come in and you've already built the habit of paying it off. So there's the psychological win. But consider the alternative. You might think $100 is not a lot in the grand scheme of things with paying off $20,000 of student loans or a personal loan or a vehicle loan. But what is the alternative? Well, the alternative is to do nothing. And tell me how that's better than at least paying $100 a month toward the thing. So we really need to wrap up our sense of worth, our identity, not in achieving the ultimate objective, but in doing the work that's going to get us there. The ultimate objective will take care of itself. And sometimes things happen that will keep you, and these are beyond your control, that will keep you from reaching your objective. So another example, I really have a goal within jiu-jitsu to get my purple belt here in the not too distant future. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I had a little injury that I've got to deal with. It might be that I'm going to have to get surgery, and that's going to put a damper on my ability to get my purple belt in a timely manner according to my timeline. Well, that's now an external. I could have done something different to not get hurt, but I did. And so now it's beyond my control. Yes, I can go to therapy. Yes, I can get the surgery, but ultimately it's a little bit more out of my reach today than it was a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. But I don't wrap up my identity in that purple belt. I do wrap up my identity in moving towards the purple belt. So last night I went and trained. Now I didn't go 100%. I went about 65 to 70%. Really protected this arm, told my training partners to keep it easy on this arm, not to attack this arm. And it went great. It went well. Other days I'm going to work on mobility or strength training or just stretching the thing out and trying to loosen it up and get it working and functioning the way that it should. Incremental improvement that will inevitably lead to the result that I want. I want you to consider this when it comes to your relationship. Your relationship might be strained. It might be on the rocks. Maybe you're going through a separation or divorce, or you're just really struggling with connection and intimacy. We as men think, well, if I just change, my wife's going to see that. And tomorrow, then we're going to be all better. Well, you took 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years potentially to get you to the point where you are in your relationship. And it isn't going to change overnight. It's going to take small incremental improvement with your communication, with your accepting responsibility, with your open-mindedness, with your attention, with the way that you share information with her, or the way that you include her in the process, or the way that you speak to her. It's going to take a lot of effort to be able to get you to the point where you want to be. Same thing with your nutrition. Some guys are like, hey, I'm 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. What do I do? Well, I mean, you can't just go get it cut off. Actually, probably could get it sucked out. I mean, that's an immediate result, but you didn't earn that, right? Like you didn't earn that result. So it's very easy for you to slip back into old patterns that got you that 40 or 50 pounds heavier that you are right now. So maybe instead of that, and I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm not telling you not to get that surgery or anything like that. But instead of that, what I would suggest to you is that why don't you just start with cutting out processed sugars? Why don't you just try to shorten your eating window? Why don't you just try to get rid of the snacking or change your portion sizes? These are small wins that you can track. And I use it here in this battle planner, but you can track it on a calendar or a notepad. But you start tracking these things, and it's pretty cool to see that, hey, my goal is to lose 30 pounds and I'm going to cut out processed sugars for the next 90 days. And then you just make a red X on a calendar and you should have 90 of those in a row. That's going to happen. Now, it might not happen in that time frame that you want, because maybe you had an unrealistic expectation of what it would take, but it's going to happen. It's at this point, it's just a matter of time, because you're doing the work required to produce the inevitable result. And you can take pride, not in the result itself, but in that you are disciplined, that you are the kind of man that follows through on his commitments, that you're the kind of person who gets up and has a list of things to do and has commitments that he's made, and you do them. And then when you put your head on your pillow at the end of the night, you can sleep comfortably because you're tired, and you can sleep peacefully because you know that you were a man of your word. Guys, this is the power of incremental improvement. And don't ever overlook it just because you think that you should be doing more, right? Again, if you're trying to lose weight, you're not going to lose 30 pounds in the next week. Like, it's just not going to happen. But you could lose 3, you could lose 5, and the next week you could lose another 3, and the next week another 3, and the next week maybe you only lose 2. The next week maybe you put a pound on because you screw up, but the following week you lose 3 more. And over a period of 12 weeks, you're down 20, 25, maybe even 30 pounds. Incremental improvement is where it's at. If you're trying to pay off debt, gradually. Teddy Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you have where you are. Not all of us are in the position to miraculously change our lives around. In fact, I would say that the overwhelming majority of us are not in that position. Don't be discouraged. Don't be upset. Don't be mad that you didn't hit the home run. Get on base, however you need to do it. All right. Walk, get a hit, force an error, get hit by the ball. It's 1,000 different ways, not 1,000, but there's quite a few different ways for you to get your butt on base. And you know who the greatest baseball players of all time are? We look at their batting average, right? We look at their on base percentage. Now, how often did this person, this player, get himself on the field? How often for every at bat did he get himself in the game? And the ones who do it the best and the most frequently are always considered the most valuable players. These are the guys that we remember. These are the guys who make it to the Hall of Fame. And these are the guys who ultimately achieve their desires as baseball players. That's a metaphor for life. Plant your flag, guys. If it's losing weight, plant your flag on that. If it's salvaging your marriage, plant your flag. If it's connecting with your kids, plant your flag. If it's starting that business or that podcast, plant your flag. And if you do that, then you can work backwards into incremental improvements, small things, 1 or 2 things you can do every single day that don't seem like a big deal, but you're gradually chipping it away at the goal and the objective that you have. It's like that old adage of eating an elephant. Well, you do it 1 bite at a time. 1 bite doesn't seem like much. 2 doesn't. 10 doesn't when we're talking about the elephant. You start with 100 bites and then 200 and then 500, and you start to see the dent that you're making towards your objectives. Small daily wins. The last thing I'll leave you with, is don't compare yourself to other people. You can look at what other people are doing for inspiration or motivation, or even to show you what's possible. I do that, but don't compare yourself to others. It's been said that comparison is the thief of joy. I believe that's true. I believe you will invite all sorts of negative feelings and thoughts and doubts and scarcity into your mindset and your psyche and your well-being. Don't compare yourself to other people. Look to what they're doing to be inspirational, to be aspirational, and to be motivational, but don't compare yourself to them because you know nothing about what they're dealing with. You know nothing about their personal situation. You know nothing about how long they've been in the game. You know nothing about opportunities that have been presented to them. You know nothing about it. So it's ignorant at best, ignorant to start comparing your own performance to the performance of others. You worry about yourself. You figure out what your big, audacious life's goal is, and you work backwards into things that you can do every day, day in and day out, and you just show up day after day after day after day and have faith that through that work, incremental improvement, that your life will get better. All right, guys, that's what I've got for you. This is coming out on Friday. Don't let the weekend be an excuse to slip. All right. Some of you guys eat so well during the week, and then the weekend, it just goes to shit. Don't do that. Still work out, still communicate with your wife, still work on your business, still get out of bed on time, still be productive. The tempo, the pace might change during the weekend, but the objectives do not. And your push towards those objectives do not. Just the tempo, just the pace. You guys know what I'm saying. All right, guys. Good luck. Best wishes. You can do it. I believe in you. We're here to support you. If you want to check out the battle planner, please do so. store.orderaman.com. And we will be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.